I know we're going late tonight, so I cut my musical number. Don't worry about that. Sam, thanks for that John Mellencamp story. You know, growing up with John Mellencamp, we had a lot of different words for things. For instance, we called dicks chili dogs. Thank you. Dicks is going to be a word I'm going to use a lot in the story tonight. God, I really can't do this. Off the stand? Like Chris Rock? Okay, all right. I'll hold on to the stand like this. So, as Marina said, I was in a band called the Muffs for 28 years. Thank you if you've heard of us. If you haven't, you probably know our version of Kids in America from Clueless. Still gets played in sports stadiums. Anyway, enough about me. Our first album, and just so you know, we stopped being a band because my bandmate Kim passed away. Not to bring everybody down. Passed away 4 years ago, but Kim's going to factor into this story. So you should know about her. So, a little out of breath. Sorry about that. So we, in 1993, our first album, see, it's showing me shake. Our first album on Warner Brothers was coming out, and we were doing our first national tour. And we started in the middle of the country. And we were on tour with the Goo Goo Dolls. They were a rock band at the time. A lot of people don't remember. Pre-plastic surgery. So we were playing Chicago at the Metro, a place we've hit many times thereafter. So after the show, there's a bar called the Smart Bar underneath, and they're open all night, so you play, and people go and drink and whatever. So I was still in the dressing room, but my bandmate Kim comes running upstairs all of a sudden and says, "Ronnie, Cynthia Plastercaster's downstairs, and I've been talking up your dick." Me and Kim used to be a couple. So, being a scholar of rock, of course I know who Cynthia Plastercaster is. If you guys don't know, she's one of the most famous groupies of all time. She would make plaster casts of rock stars' dicks. And so I got a little nervous, kind of like I am now. And I walked downstairs, and the bar's not crowded at all. But I walk in, and there's Cynthia, next to who I later learned was her lawyer, Santiago Durango from the band Big Black. And they're looking me up and down. It's like I'm a cartoon, and my body's turned into a steak. Right? They're looking me up and down. They're looking at my hands. And Cynthia, who's actually quite shy, sheepishly comes up with Santiago, and she's like, "Look, I'm in litigation right now to get my cast and my kit back." She'd given her cast and her kit to Herb Cohen, Frank Zappa's manager, for safekeeping in the 70s, and he wasn't giving them back. This is 1993 again. So she's like, "Look, I'd love to cast you." Cynthia only casts people she likes, by the way. Only people she's a fan of. Like Kiss wrote the song about her. This is the third reference to Kiss tonight, by the way. But she wasn't a fan of Kiss, so Kiss is not plaster casted. Okay? So she's like, "I can't do it tonight." And then, of course, there's no pressure there. So I'm like, "Sure, I will be plaster casted by you, Cynthia Plastercaster." So cut to 3 months later. We're back in Chicago. We're headlining this time. And there's Cynthia. She's at the show. She's like, "Well, I won the lawsuit. I got my kit and my sweet babies back." This is her kind of terminology, sweet babies, you know. And she's like, "If you want to do it tonight, we can. If you want to be casted still, we'll do it." So again, I don't go whipping my dick out all the time, right? But it's Cynthia Plastercaster. I've got to do it. So we do the show. And then I say goodbye to my bandmates, and it's me and Cynthia. In the past, it was the Plastercasters of Chicago, so there'd be somebody else there. It was just me and her this night. So we walk into Cynthia's apartment, and could I stress again, the woman loves dicks, all right? The apartment is all phallic stuff. Empire State Building lamp, everything's phallic. And anyway, it's time to get down to business. So she opens the kit. She changes into her uniform that she puts on to do all the casting. It's her father's Boy Scout top. Don't ask me the significance of this. And then a safety pin to it is like this wild pattern. Turned out to be Keith Moon's pant leg, because when she did Keith Moon, she needed an apron, and he's like, "Here you go, love," you know. So she balls up Keith Moon's pants and smells it, right? And then she offers it to me. And again, I'm a student of rock. I'm like, yeah, I will sniff Keith Moon's. Yeah. Smell like musty cloth, if you must know. So she spreads newspaper on the ground. We're in her kitchen at this point. Now, it's quite a clinical process. She uses alginate, which I think is the correct pronunciation, which is what dentists use to make impressions of your teeth. And so she has me pull my pants down, and she oils me up, all right? She oils up the area because Jimi Hendrix famously fucked the mold and like hair stuck in there and stuff. And so that's when she learned to oil the subject up. I'm sorry, before that, she takes out her notebook, right? It's got all the notes. Talks about Jimmy's Hampton Wick, another term she loves English terms. She goes to me, she writes down my serial number, 00050. And I'm like, honey, you better get going if you plan on getting the 10,000s, right? Like, anyway, it's a nice number. Okay, so she spreads newspaper on the ground. My pants are down. She gets on her knees, and she's mixing. It's like a scientist. This is like a chemistry thing. So she starts mixing, and she says to me, you might want to start beating off now. Yes, this is how sexual this is. Again, in the past, there's another plaster caster to kind of help you out a little bit. So after she tells me to start beating off, for some reason, she mentions to me when she did the guy from Gay Bikers on Acid that he jacked off to a photo of her mom. I don't know what that was supposed to do for me. But anyway, so I'm doing the best I can. She's mixing it up. The container, just so you get a visual, you know, if you get a milkshake at Denny's, they give you that little metal, that extra container. That's what it is, okay? So she's mixing it up. I'm doing the best I can. And then all of a sudden, okay, it's time. So she plunges my dick into this cold alginate. All right, and I can't stress how cold it was. All right, you cannot feel if you're hard, soft, whatever. She's on her knees. She's stuffing the balls in. All right, sorry, there's no kids here, right? And I can't feel anything. Again, I can't feel anything. I'm in there. You stay in there for a minute, and then all of a sudden, okay, it's done. Pull out, go to the shower. So I go to the shower, and I'm thinking, well, I'm not going to forget this anytime soon. A little annoying, I'd be at Tom Bergen's telling the story. So I came out, and what happens is she pours at that point she pours the plaster into the mold, and then it sits for 24 hours. So I didn't know what it looked like. I left. I went on my way. She gave me a T-shirt. Says I got castrated in Chicago. Still have the shirt. It's now in the Punk Rock Museum. So the next night I call her, 24 hours later. I'm like, so how did it come out? And she says, well, I think it's just darling. All right, which was not what I was expecting to hear. Again, some of these things are failed. Like she's got like Wayne Kramer, just the head part. You know, sometimes it didn't work out. Anyway, I think it's just darling, she tells me. I'm like, okay. And she's like, well, what happened is you softened in the mold, so it curls around. So my cast curls around. Yeah, she thought it was just darling. And she really did because, well, I'll say I didn't see it for 2 years. We weren't back in Chicago for 2 years. And then she showed up at the show with my cast, like in swaddling clothing, like the baby Jesus. And we took photos with it and stuff. And it was just darling, right? So she did like it, though, because for the rest of her life, she would, when she did spoken word gigs, she would bring mine, and she would bring John Langford from the Mekons, who was like a straight up, you know what I mean? Like so impressive. Like people like, they have flags with a dick on it, you know, when she shows it. With mine, it gets a little bit of laughter, and then she says, "Hey, you gotta have a long dick to pull this off." Anyway, Cynthia passed away a couple years ago, and just this last May, I got 3 of mine. But again, she made copies of mine, carried them around. So I was plaster casted in Chicago, and I can imagine I'm the only one in the room that can say that.